This is Kimberly Flatt, and we are going to be talking a little bit about case law. So, I thought I would give you guys a few stories that are true stories that I've had the opportunity to learn from, and kind of give some real life examples to some of the things you guys have been reading this week. One of my stories, all the names have been changed to protect the identity of these kiddos and their families. But one of these kiddos that I worked with several years ago, this is an interesting story. This young man moved into the school district at about 14 years old. He had an eligibility that resulted in some subsequent significant maladaptive behaviors. His behaviors were things such as making threats to some of his peers, life-threatening kind of negative comments. He was also quite aggressive towards other people. Teachers reported him as being dangerous. He made people quite uncomfortable, exhibited a tremendous amount of significant maladaptive behavior in a high school within about the first 10 weeks of school or so. Of course, it wasn't very long before an ARD meeting was held, and they were discussing his placement, which he had, being new to the district, they had match placement, which would put him in an inclusion type setting as the best match that they could based on the paperwork that was available at that time. In this ARD meeting, this was a really interesting ARD meeting. The mom showed up, mom and dad. They had they shared the same concerns. They felt concerns for their son. They also felt concerns for the other kiddos at the campus that he was at school at. And the parents came up with some really great ideas as part of their active involvement with the ARD committee. In fact, the parents requested if the district happened to have a placement that was more restrictive. They said, is there any place that you have in this district that might be self-contained, maybe specializing with people with behavior disabilities that might be able to help my son? If you had a place that was just not part of this huge campus, maybe he'd be more successful somewhere else. Of course, the teachers thought that sounded like a great idea because they were very concerned about the types of behaviors that they were seeing and the risk factors of the particular topographies that he expressed. So they were really concerned. They did decide in that ARD meeting with the administrator, general education teacher, special education teacher, mother, they described what an off-campus placement would look like for this young man, and as a committee, the team decided that that was in his best educational interest. So the ARD minutes were read and agreed upon, and everyone left that meeting very happy. As you can imagine, someone who has a lot of attention-seeking behaviors, as well as behaviors that are escape maintained, and he's now put into a classroom with more restrictions, a classroom with staff that's better equipped to meet the needs of young people with specific behavioral barriers. He wasn't a fan of this placement, right? He really preferred his former placement where he had access to an entire high school campus of peers, and this restrictive placement really was not preferred by him. So he complained. He complained a lot. In fact, he complained such that it made it really challenging for his mom to get up and get him dressed and get him to school in the morning because he was so oppositional. He was not looking forward to going to school. He felt frustrated in his new placement. It wasn't very long after that decision had occurred, maybe 2 weeks into to his new placement, that was mutually decided upon, that his mother felt very stressed by this decision. She felt like maybe she had brought up the wrong idea, and she sought some counsel. She sought some legal counsel, and before you know it, the school was being investigated. The case went to mediation, not to due process, but it did go to mediation, and the hearing officer pointed out a couple of things, and that is the key point of the story. The thing that I really want you guys to hear is, ARD committee members, teachers, you are the specialist. You are the educational specialist for the students that you're discussing in that meeting. The parent had an idea. Their ideas are relevant. Their ideas are valuable. In that particular meeting, it was ruled that the parents' involvement, she didn't have the expertise to make the types of recommendations as a parent that she made, and that it was the school district that should have stepped up and said, actually, there's this thing called least restrictive environment, and there's a few steps that we should probably follow, and some positive behavior supports that we really need to put in place here on this campus prior to trying to move him away from his peers and restrict his setting so significantly. So, if you've read What Happens Next, you know this young man stayed put. So he ended up back on his regular campus, and it was just a really difficult time. His behavior escalated. It was very dangerous. It was very challenging for all of the staff that were required, to support him. He was aware that he had gotten, what he'd wanted, and the teachers were forced to kind of step back and take some proper data, analyze the situation, and move forward in a more systematic and appropriate way. So the lesson in that story, really for everyone that was involved, and that I would like to share with you guys today, is to remember your value as an educator, and that your opinion in that ARD committee meeting, you are an expert. And regardless of what the other ARD committee members may vote or perceive to be the right thing to do, every member of that ARD committee is responsible for doing the right thing by that child, by holding up their end of the bargain when it comes to making the best educational decisions. And the judge was right in this case. The teachers, the administrators, they really should have known that taking such a large step for this particular young man was not the least restrictive placement. So there was really no winner. and that is the case with all every hearing, every mediation that takes place, regardless of the outcome. There's truly never a winner. These are painful, frustrating activities for everybody that's involved. Parents, teachers, administrators, specialists, everyone who takes part of these kinds of legal happenings. I don't know anyone who says, wow, that was fun, I'd do that again. It's really, really tough and draining on everyone. Couple more stories. There'll be 3 total. That was one. And the second story is about a different, we'll call her a young lady. This young lady was very precious. She'd had this teacher for 2 years. At the end of the second year, near the end of the second year of having this teacher, the teacher, because she felt like she was friends with this mom. She felt like they were very close. They talked to each other at drop-off and pick-up. They had a lot of things in common. And there was really a connection between the family and the teacher. The teacher let her guard down a little bit, and she made some comments. She said, I just don't know that your daughter is making the kind of progress that I'd like to see. I really think if your daughter had one-on-one ABA therapy, that she would probably really do well with that. I mean, I just don't feel like we're not moving like we should. And so-and-so and so-and-so, they've used ABA therapy and they've been so successful. I just wondered if you'd ever thought about it, because I've seen such great things. And Mom said, I don't even know what ABA therapy is, so thanks, I guess I'll look into it. Mom did look into it. Mom decided that private one-on-one ABA treatment was the direction she wanted to go with her child. She took her child for about 4 months, and into that process, it became quite expensive and costly financially for the family. With that being said, they started thinking back to why am I in this, why am I getting these extra supports? Oh yeah, it was my teacher that told me that that's what we should do. It was my teacher that suggested that my child would be successful with ABA therapy. In fact, it almost indicated that she didn't have the skill set required to teach my daughter. So the parent decided to file suit against the district and requesting that all of that all those bills be paid, that financial obligation of the one-on-one ABA therapy be picked up by the school district. Because one, the expert, that's you guys, that's the teachers, that's the campus staff in special ed, the student's educational expert made an official recommendation. Now, this could have been as casual as a conversation that happened in carpool. Teachers are teachers. You are valuable. Your professional opinion matters. You're not allowed to have a bad day and describe these things to families. So on this day, when the teacher made a casual recommendation and casually mentioned that the child wasn't making the kind of progress that she thought she could, that did come back on the school district. And because she was employed by the school district, it was determined that that was an educational placement, that the teacher made that decision, that the parent did it based on the facts that she had from that teacher at that time. She moved forward, and the school district was required to pay thousands of dollars to support that backdated ABA bill that accrued for several months. So that's kind of story two. Well-meaning teacher who did really great things for kiddos, found herself in a bind that none of us would want to be in. The third and final story is about data collection. I'm a behavior analyst, and I talk about data collection all the time. I love data. I love graphing it. I love everything that has to do with data collection. So I often tell teachers, are you taking data? How's your data? How's your data? Well, this is going to be a story that describes data in a different way. So data is really only good. Instead of saying I love data, what I should say is I love meaningful and relevant data. Because what could happen sometimes, this is another case where the student was in the same teacher's classroom, so it was an elementary school. So for a couple of years, she was receiving her educational supports by the same classroom teacher, right? That happens a lot in elementary school, especially in self-contained type classrooms. So this young lady, the teacher took great data. She did discrete trial training with her students. She did some natural environment teaching. She was doing pivotal response training. She was doing fabulous instruction in her classroom. It looked really great. She was taking data. She had clipboards pinned to everything that would hold still. I mean, this woman loved data as much as I did. The problem with this particular set of data, when the family was feeling frustrated, and this is another case where the parents really felt that the teacher felt like the parents were a friend. They spoke to each other so regularly on the phone. Parents were texting mom. Mom was texting the teachers. These people, the teacher's perception was that these were friends. It's important to remember that these are professional relationships. What occurred was mom was very comfortable with her daughter's diagnosis, up as long as the teacher had known her. But a particular weekend happened where her daughter was less than successful at a birthday party. For whatever reason, mom had awareness raised to some of the differences behaviorally that her daughter had, and really genuinely began to grieve the fact that her daughter looked so very different than her peers at this party. Part of her grief process, she became frustrated. She thought, my daughter should do more. My daughters could do better. Is my daughter making enough progress? Am I doing the right thing? Is the teacher doing the right thing? And just investigating, she gets connected with people that say, oh, well, check and see if there's anything more they could be doing at the school. So they do a paperwork request. They ask for all of the students' data to be collected. That's an exciting task because there were probably 5 giant boxes of paper that were data that were specific to this child. And it didn't take very long in that paperwork investigation to realize that beautiful, beautiful data that was collected on hundreds of clipboards actually documented very well that this child hadn't been making progress. So there was data. The data was not meaningful, it wasn't relevant, and it wasn't being applied into the child's educational program. So the family took that data and requested, as they had the right to, instruction, make up time. They felt that they had lost educational opportunity, and they had data to support the fact that that was true. They had lost opportunity. There had been 2 years of very little, almost no progress, and in some ways there was regression noted. So that data that was meant to support and enhance her program actually was just collected beautifully and packed lovely in a box and didn't serve the purpose that it was intended to. So my point on that story being twofold, remember professionalism, Your parents are often wonderful people. You feel like you're part of the family. These families can love you until they don't. With that being said, a lot of the families, especially in these types of classrooms that are self-contained or have students with more profound needs, families are often grieving. Grief doesn't occur in one single cycle. Grief can occur again and again in different life phases. And as a teacher, to know your role in that, and to know that a family that's very happy on one Friday could have a revelation and come to you distraught on a Monday, and it have absolutely nothing to do with you or your teaching, but just be part of the natural grieving cycle that comes with having a child with special needs sometimes. So I caution you. I caution you in making sure that at all times you maintain the utmost professionalism. I caution you to remember that you are the expert in that ARD committee meeting, and your opinion and your voice is valuable and needs to be heard, and there's responsibility in that. I caution you to consider least restrictive environment at all times. That's a topic that I'm sure you're running into a lot as you're looking at case law. So looking at maintaining all of those things, least restrictive environment, documentation that's relevant and meaningful, and guarding your professionalism and keeping it at the utmost. So I hope you guys are enjoying this lesson, and I look forward to talking to each and every one of you on Blackboard. See you later.